Netherlands, Khaleel Rajwani.
When I was a kid, I remember doing everything exactly the way my parents wanted. I went to bed at 10, I went to mosque on Friday, and every Sunday morning we ate pancakes. And when I asked myself today why I did those things, there was in fact no particular reason. That was the way things were done. These were traditions taught to me by my parents with generations of history. But part of growing up is asking ourselves why we do the things we do. And some traditions are not so harmless. We must decide what has value and what we must give up. And so in order to progress, we must ask where our traditions come from. Today I hope to show you where tradition can go wrong and propose a solution for the future. In my home country of the Netherlands, remnants of our colonial past continue to haunt minorities in society. You may have heard of the famously controversial Dutch tradition of Black Piet. Piet is the traditional servant of St. Nicholas, who brings gifts to the children in December. And Piet is portrayed as a black Moor from the south of Spain and has been considered offensive and racist by many communities. Black Piet continues the alienation of blacks in Dutch society by reinforcing stereotypes and portraying blacks as the other. You don't have to look far to see other examples of these harmful traditions. Aboriginal mascots like the Washington Redskins reinforce stereotypes of indigenous people in the Americas. Traditional marriages in South Asia damage women's liberty and social status. And female circumcision in sub-Saharan Africa brands women as dependent and promiscuous. And I'm sure you can all think of damaging traditions from your own culture. And what all of these traditions have in common is the past. They are remnants of historical attitudes that no one should be proud of. They continue the discrimination of groups of people long after changes in laws and ethical practices. Blacks, women, indigenous people, so many groups have suffered in the past, yet we remain ignorant of what that past really looked like. So, what can we do about it? Many say that you can never change the ideas that people have held for generations. But if we want to grow as people and as a society, we must begin by educating the next generation. Traditions are often learned within the home. And so, as parents, siblings, and relatives, we need to educate our children about our history and the importance of our past. We need to contextualize these traditions. Recalling my personal example of Black Piet. Black Piet is a symbol of an inhumane past of black slavery in the Dutch Caribbean and Suriname. And if we teach our younger generation about this regrettable past, then they will begin to question why these traditions persist. This education is what will make a change moving into the future. Our children are the key to outgrowing traditions. But in order to empower them, we must take responsibility for our past. Education can help inspire the younger generation to think critically about the consequences and the context of our traditions. To conclude with the words of someone who truly exemplified this message, Malala Yousafzai, who said that traditions are not sent from heaven. It is us who make tradition. It is our right to change it, and we should change it. Thank you.
Thanks for the speech. My question is, does history have a higher purpose, or is it simply a teaching?
Thank you. I think that the purpose of history is to really set the context for our behaviors and our actions of today. And so I think it's both a learning tool and a tool for creating a sense of identity. And I think, one thing that a lot of people talk about is that traditions link them with the past. Traditions give them a certain sense of identity. And what I think is crucial moving forward is that we consider traditions as not something sacred, but something that we can openly criticize and think about. And so that we can keep the valuable traditions from the past and maintain that positive identity while leaving out some of the more negative aspects that may carry through over time. Thank you for your question.
You can stand, you can see where the mic's coming from.
You mentioned that the young are capable of changing traditions. What are such traditions, and what kind of traditions do you see us leaving behind when we're old? Thank you.
Thank you for that question. And I think that particularly tradition is not necessarily an action or a behavior, but rather it's an attitude. And as I mentioned, that attitude is doing things because that was the way they were done. And what I would like to see really happen is that we change that attitude to doing things because they are valuable and weighing the harms and the benefits, considering what context these actions and these behaviors come from, in order to prevent the harms that I talked about in my society and in every society. And so if we remove that that attitude, then tradition becomes more open to positive change for every society, not just in one action, but rather as an attitude. Thank you.
So according to your speech, it is the new generations which promote the change. So would you agree with this statement that we can only improve when the old ones die?
Thank you for that question. I think that, yes, there's a certain cycle that we see, that the younger generations tend to question more the dogmas of perhaps their grandparents. And I think by utilizing that, by giving more responsibility, education, and context to the younger generation, we can really speed up that process. And furthermore, then when they become adults and they become parents and grandparents, then they will also have a sense of value for history, for the past, knowing that what they said in the past or what they knew of the past may not be necessarily the right way forward. So again, it's about changing that attitude from a young age all the way as people grow up to not thinking about things as only that's how they were done in the past, but rather what is the value and is it something worth continuing into the future? Thank you.